Hey class, we're going to start Unit 5, Section 2, Dividing Polynomials. So just like always, just take a second right now to get the heading written down in your notebook, and also date your notes. For example, for me, the date is for April 7th. So just make that a habit that you're always putting headings down and dating everything that you do. Alright, so in order to divide polynomials, first we need to kind of look back at how we long divide just plain numbers. So let's look at problem 1 here. If I take 1,533 and I divide it by 7, so here's how I set up my long division. So first I look at this. Does 7 go into 1? Nope. So then I look at, well, does 7 go into 15? Yes, it does. It goes into 15 twice. So now what I do is I actually take this number and I multiply it by this thing. So I'm going to show that work off to the side here. This is going to be helpful when we actually get to polynomials. So 2 times 7 gives me 14. This is just a habit I'd love for you to get into, is put parentheses around that, and we are going to subtract it. So we want to see what's left over. 15 minus 14 is 1. And then drop this next thing down. And then we start the process over. So how many times does 7 go into 13? 7 goes into 13 once. So same thing, I take the number I wrote here, the 1, I'm going to multiply it by this, the 7. I'm going to show that off to the side. 1 times 7 is 7. Put that there. And again, I always use parentheses here. This will help later. And 13 minus 7 is 6. Now bring down that, and we literally start the process over again. How many times does 7 go into 63? Well, 7 goes into 63 9 times. And same thing, 9 times 7. I'll show it over here. 9 times 7 is 63. Subtract, I get 0. So there's no remainder here. So my answer is 219. Alright, next problem, let's look at number 2. Pretty sure I set number 2 up to have a remainder, so we're going to see what that looks like. Okay, so first I write it. 8,352 divided into 22. Okay, so 22 does not go into 8, but what about 83? 22 goes into 83 3 times. Okay, I'm going to do the 3 times 22, and that's going to give me 66. Going to subtract that. So left over there is 17. Bring down the 5 and start over. How many times does 22 go into 175? Well, whole times it goes in 7 whole times. Then scratch work, I'm going to do the 7 times the 22 to see how many that gives me. And 7 times 22 is 154. Okay, I'm going to subtract that again. And I get 21. And drop down this 2. 22 goes into 212. 9 times. And again, I'm going to take this 9 times the 22. And get 198. And left over, subtract that, and left over there is 14. So, sorry, I don't know why I wrote it there, 14. So there's nothing else to bring down. So that's kind of my remainder, but we're not going to say remainders, we're going to use fractions. So my answer is 379 plus 14/22, or 379 and 14/22, which we could reduce to 7/11 if you wanted to. So my answer for this one is 379 and 7/11. Okay, now let's see what dividing polynomials actually looks like. And to be honest, the process is pretty darn similar. So we're going to do x squared minus 3x minus 40 divided by x minus 3. You can just watch this one and maybe try it on your own after you see it once. It's kind of up to you. So first I'm just going to write it. X squared plus 3x minus 40, and we're dividing that by x minus 3. Okay, so first, it's a little different here. We're actually just going to look at the first term here, the x. And how many times does the x divide into x squared? An easy way to think about that is x times what gives you x squared? And the answer is x. You'll see that that makes sense here in a second. So just like before, we're going to take this, we're going to multiply it by this whole thing. And I'm going to show that work off to the side. X times the x minus 3, I have to distribute that, is going to give me x squared minus 3x. Now, here's where the parentheses are kind of key. Put parentheses around that because we're going to subtract that whole thing to see what's left over. So, you know you did it right if the first two things cancel. X squared minus x squared is 0. Those cancel out. Be very careful here because this is a minus. So 3x minus negative 3x, well, minus a negative is plus. So this is actually 3x minus negative 3x is actually 6x. Okay? That's what's left over. Now bring down the next term, which is minus 40. All right? And then we start the process over. Okay? How many times does this x go into 6x? Well, again, just think about what can you multiply x by to get 6x. Hopefully you said you multiply it by 6. So I put a plus 6 up here. Okay, same thing. Take that positive 6, multiply it by this whole thing. I'll show that work off to the side here. 6 times x minus 3. That's going to give me 6x minus 18. Again, parentheses are key to make sure that you subtract everything. And 6x minus 6x, those cancel out. Now be careful here, that's negative 40 minus negative 18. And again, I don't care if you use a calculator. I mean, just type it in, negative 40 minus negative 18, and you easily get negative 22. There's nothing else to bring down, so when that happens, that's your remainder. But we're not going to write it as a remainder, we're going to tack it on as a fraction. So I'm going to put minus 22 over x minus 3, just like we did before. So my answer for this problem is x plus 6 minus 22 divided by x minus 3. There you go. Okay, this next example, this next problem, again, you can kind of just watch and listen on this one, and then maybe try it on your own after you're done listening to the explanation. So this one's a little different. There's a little something we have to add here, and you'll see why I do it here in a few minutes. But if I take 2x cubed plus 6x plus 152, and I divide it by x plus 4, I'm actually going to do something first before I even write it. And you'll see here in a few minutes why I do this. I'm going to rewrite this as 2x cubed plus 0x squared plus 6x plus 152. So you'll see again in a minute why I do this. There weren't any x squared, so that's why I kind of gave a placeholder. I always want division problems to go degree 3, degree 2, degree 1, degree 0. Again, you'll see why in a second. So that's what I'm going to write when I set this problem up. All right, so let me write that. So if I take 2x cubed plus 0x squared plus 6x plus 152, and I'm going to divide that into x plus 4. All right, so I'm going to start in, so how many times does x go into 2x cubed? Well, it is going to be 2x squared times. So I'm going to take that 2x squared, I'm going to multiply it by the x plus 4. 2x squared times x plus 4. That's going to give me 2x cubed. Hey, those should match. They do. Plus 8x squared. So I think you might see why I did that now. It's just nice to have that visual of things lining up so nice. Like my cubes there, my squares here. It's nice to have that. So that's why I use those, what I call placeholders. Put parentheses around it, subtract. 2x cubed minus 2x cubed, that's 0. They cancel out. And 0x squared minus 8x squared is going to be negative 8x squared. All right, bring down the 6x and start again. How many times does x go into negative 8x squared? And it goes in negative 8x times. So now again, be careful. I take the negative 8x times the x plus 4. So negative 8x times x plus 4. Multiply those together, I get negative 8x squared. Good, same. Minus 32x. I'm going to subtract the whole thing. These two cancel. Negative 8x squared minus negative 8x squared, they cancel out. And negative 6x minus negative. Be careful there, that's actually going to turn to plus. So 6x minus negative 32, that's going to be 38x. Bring down the 152 and start again. How many times does x go into 38x? Goes in positive 38 times. So what's 38 times x plus 4? That's going to be 38x plus 38 times 4 is 152. That worked out real nice. Subtract it, cancel, cancel. This one does not have a remainder. Nice. So we could actually say that since it does not have a remainder, x plus 4 perfectly goes into 2x cubed plus 6x plus 152. In other words, we can say that x plus 4 is a factor of 2x cubed plus 6x plus 152. I'm going to start using that language a little more and more. X plus 4 is a factor of 2x cubed plus 6x plus 152. All right, this one I actually want you to try on your own. Take a second to do that. I'll give you a hint. I see a 3, 2, but I don't see an x. And then I see minus 75. So use a placeholder here as you write it down. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write it, and again I'm going to have to use a placeholder for the x to the first term. So x cubed minus 2x squared plus 0x minus 75, and dividing that all by x minus 5. So first thing, x goes into x cubed, x squared number of times. So x squared times x minus 5, you're going to get x cubed minus 5x squared. Again, I always like to use parentheses. I think it makes it easy to see that you have to subtract everything. Those cancel. Negative 2 minus negative, that's going to be plus, so that's going to be 3x squared. Bring down the plus 0x and start again. How many times does x go into 3x squared? Well, it goes positive 3x times. Okay, now take that 3x and times it by that. That's going to be 3x squared minus 15x. Subtract it. Cancel. 0 minus minus, that's going to be plus, so that's going to be 15x. Bring down the minus 75. And start again. How many times does x go into 15x? It goes in positive. Sorry, I'm running out of room. Positive, there we go. 15 times. Alright, 15 times x minus 5. That's going to be 15x minus 75. Nice. No remainder again. Subtract, cancel, cancel, so no remainder. So again, that means that x minus 5 is a factor of x cubed minus 2x squared minus 75 because it goes in evenly. All right. 4 and 5, got 2 this time. Take a few minutes to try these two on your own. All right, as I write it down here, I kind of try to plan ahead where I'm putting it. I did not need any placeholders here. Divided into 3x plus 1. All right, how many times does 3x go into 6x cubed? It goes in 2x squared times. And that will work out because when I take 2x squared times 3x plus 1, I get 6x cubed. Same thing. Plus 2x squared. I'm going to subtract that whole thing. Cancel. All right, and 5 minus 2, that's going to be 3x squared. Drop down the, careful here, the minus 2x, and start again. How many times does 3x go into 3x squared? Turns out nice, it's just plus 1x. Again, you'll know you're right once you multiply them. Take the x times the 3x plus 1. That's going to be 3x squared plus x. Subtract them, cancel, good. Negative 2 minus 1. That's negative 3x. Drop down the plus 1 here and start again. Okay, 3x goes into negative 3x. Be careful. Goes in negative 1 time. Alright, so negative 1 times 3x plus 1 is going to be negative 3x minus 1. Subtract it, cancel, and 1 minus negative 1 is actually going to be 2. So this one did not go in nicely, so we would say 3x plus 1 is not a factor of that because it did not go in evenly. Alright, I need to finish my answer here. So that means I'm going to have plus 2 over 3x plus 1. So my final answer is that whole thing. Alright, moving on to number 5. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to rewrite it. So don't need any placeholders, so x squared plus 7x minus 11 divided by negative x plus 3. Alright, so how many times does negative x go into x squared? Goes in negative x times. You'll see that that makes sense in a second. So take negative x, times it by this thing. So negative x times negative x plus 3. That's going to be x squared, good, positive, minus 3x. I always like the parentheses because it reminds me to subtract everything. X squared minus x squared cancels. 7 minus negative. It's going to be plus, so that's going to turn out to be 10x. Bring down to minus 11. Alright, start again. How many times does negative x go into 10x? Goes in minus 10 times, negative 10 times. So now take the negative 10 and multiply it by this whole thing. Negative 10 times negative x plus 3. Negative 10 times negative x is positive 10x. Negative 10 times 3 is minus 30. Subtract it, cancel. Negative 11 minus negative 30, that's going to turn into plus plus, is going to be positive 19. Alright, so again, like the last one, that means that negative x plus 3 is not a factor of x squared plus 7x minus 11. So finishing off my answer, it's going to be plus, because the 19 is positive, 19 over negative x plus 3. And there's my full final answer for this one. Alright, I got 2 more for you to try on your own. Again, show the process, take your time, and check back in when you're done. So first thing I did on number 6 is I just rewrote it. And so now 2x goes into 4x cubed. 2x squared times. Again, I'm always thinking about what can I multiply this by to get exactly that. You'll know you're right when you do this step. 2x squared times 2x minus 5. And that gives me 4x cubed minus 10x squared. Subtract, cancel, negative 8 plus 10 is going to be 2x squared. Start again. 2x goes into 2x squared. Positive x times. Take that positive x, times it by the 2x plus 5. Minus 5, excuse me. 2x squared minus 5x. Oop, forgot to bring this minus 13x down, huh? Alright, and subtract. And cancel. Negative 13 plus 5, going to be negative 8x. And bring down the plus 20 and start again. 2x goes into negative 8x. Negative 4 times. Take that negative 4. You got to be so careful with your positives and negatives here, and just always be very careful in algebra with those. So negative 4, 2x minus 5, going to be negative 8x. Negative negative makes plus 20. Nice. Subtract that. All cancels. Cool. So what does that mean? That means that 2x minus 5, since it went in evenly, no remainder, that means that 2x minus 5 is a factor of this polynomial. Cool. Problem number 7. Okay, so I need a placeholder here. So as I write it, I'm going to keep that in mind. So x cubed minus 2x squared plus 0x's minus 4. So it goes 3, 2, 1, none. Always needs to go greatest to least and by ones all the way down to none. Divided into x minus 3. Alright, so x squared times x minus 3 is going to be x cubed minus 3x squared. Subtract that, cancel. Negative 2 minus negative, that's going to be 1x squared. Bring down the plus 0x and start again. X goes into 1x squared. Positive x times x minus 3. See, doesn't this just get fun? X squared minus 3x. Subtract, cancel, 0 minus negative turns into plus, so that's going to be 3x. Bring down the minus 4. Start again. X goes into 3x 3 times, positive 3 times. And so 3 times x minus 3, that's going to be 3x minus 9. Hey, we get a remainder. Cancel, negative 4 minus negative 9 is positive 5. So that means that x minus 3 is not a factor of that because it does not go in evenly. So to finish off my answer, since this is positive, I'm going to write plus 5 over x minus 3. And that is my final answer for that one. Okay, I think now would be a decent time to take a little break. We're going to move on to a different, still long dividing, but we're going to take a shortcut. It's called synthetic division. Okay, so we're going to do a different type of division. Instead of long division, we're going to do synthetic division. It's a little faster. It's kind of a shortcut. But before we talk about it, I just want you to watch this problem. So first, I'm going to do it long division. It's the first example. I already did it, but I'll do it again. And then I'm going to show you what synthetic division looks like, just so you can kind of see how they're similar and actually they are the same. Okay? So if I quickly go through this one, I'm just going to set it up. Divides into x minus 3. All right, so x is going to go there. I'm going to take that x and I'm going to multiply it by x minus 3. And that's going to give me x squared minus 3x. Subtract that. Sorry, I didn't show my work, sorry. Cancel, 3 minus negative 3 is going to be 6x. Bring down the minus 40 and start again. Okay, that's going to be plus 6. And then do the same thing. 6 times x minus 3 is going to be 6x minus 18. Subtract that, negative 40 minus negative, that's going to be plus, is going to be negative 22. And so my final answer is minus 22 over x minus 3. Okay, so synthetic division, all we're really going to do is we're going to look at the coefficients of every term. Okay, so for this part, I'm just going to use the coefficients. And here's how I'm going to set it up. And I'm going to set it up this way every time. So the coefficient of the first thing is 1. So I'm just going to use the 1. The coefficient of the x term is 3. So I'm just going to use the 3, not even the plus. And the coefficient of this is negative 40. So I'm going to use negative 40. Okay? Now, instead of subtracting, like we've been doing here, we actually always do add here, and I'll kind of explain that here in a second. And I'm going to put a line right there, leaving a space here. Okay, now this part, instead of using x minus 3, I'm actually just going to use what the root would be of this. So I'm actually going to use positive 3. You can think about it as it's always, if this is minus 3, you're going to use plus 3. If it were plus 3, you use minus 3. I'm going to phrase that as I'm always going to use the the root that you would get if you set that equal to 0. So I'm going to put 3 there. All right, so first thing we do is we take this first thing and we just drop it down. 1. That is the first coefficient of our answer. You can actually see it here, 1x. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the 3 times the 1, and that's going to give me 3 times 1 is 3. Okay? Multiply those two things together and put it there. And then what you do is you just add these two things. 3 plus 3 is 6. Hey, that's going to be the second coefficient of my answer. You can actually see it there. And then the very last thing is always the remainder. So what I always do in synthetic division is I always put a kind of a squiggly line here, because whatever is left here is always the remainder, the last part, always. So let's finish this problem off the same way. So I'm going to take the 3 times the 6. That's going to give me 18. Add those together, and I get negative 22. So I don't want you to leave your answer like this. You actually need to write it out for me. So this is going to be 1x plus 6 minus the remainder 22 over x minus 3, and you still need to write it like that. There, that's what synthetic division looks like.
Boring.
Okay, so my wife just came down as I was doing this, and so that's what she thinks about synthetic division. She's laughing. She thinks she's pretty hilarious. All right, I want you to try this problem on your own in your notebook. I will give you a hint, and just use synthetic division, but I'm going to give you a hint here. You still need to use your placeholders here. So I have 3. I need a 0x squared placeholder. So that's you're going to use a coefficient of 0 there. So try that on your own, see what that looks like, and stop back in a second. All right, setting this problem up, I'm just going to write it out. It'd be 2x cubed plus 0x squared minus 3x minus 5. So you can see I have 3, 2, 1, 0. All right, so now what does the synthetic division look like? Well, I'm going to use 2, 0, negative 3, watch your negatives, and negative 5. Leave a space, plus, and since this is plus 2, I'm actually going to use minus 2 right here. And I always put a little box around it. All right, drop the first thing, 2, that's the first part of your answer. Multiply this and this. That gives you negative 4. Add these two things together, negative 4. Multiply that and that. That gives you positive 8. Add these two things together, 5. Multiply negative 2 times the 5. You get negative 10. Add those together, you get negative 15. Again, I always like to do a little squiggly there to let me know that this is the remainder. Now, this column is the remainder, so I'll put a little r there. This column is my constant. Whatever answer is there is going to be my constant. Guess I shouldn't have wrote that out. This is my constant column. This is going to be my x to the first column, and this is going to be my x squared column. It's always going to be, you're always kind of going down 1 from where you started. All right, so my final answer, which I have to write out, is 2x squared minus 4x plus 5, and then it does have a remainder, so a fraction, minus 15 over x plus 2. Okay? There you go. Okay, now actually take a few minutes to try 3, 4, and 5 on your own using just synthetic division. once you start getting the hang of this, the synthetic division thing, you get pretty zippy at it. So try those 3 on your own in your notebook. Remember to stay organized and write down questions if you have them. Number 3, so I'm going to take the 2, the negative 13, 26, and the negative 24. Leave a space, plus, and I'm going to make that positive 4. Put it in a little box. Bring the 2 down. That's 8. Next coefficient is going to be negative 5, negative 20. Add those together, you get 6. 4 times 6 is 24. Love it when this happens. Add those together, you get 0. Remember that that's my remainder. So this is my constant x squared. So my answer is 2x squared minus 5x plus 6. So therefore, x minus 4 is a factor of that polynomial. Nice. Next one. Alright, I know I went a little fast through that key, so feel free to watch it again or push pause. This one I'm going to need a placeholder. I don't have an x squared, so I'm going to keep that in mind. So 6, negative 8 is the x cubed. I don't have an x squared, so I'm going to put a 0, x squared, 12, and negative 14. 2 there. Remember, it's always, if that's minus 2, you put a positive 2 there. Alright, drop the 6. 2 times 6 is 12. Add those, you get 4. 2 times 4 is 8. Add those, you get 8. 2 times 8 is 16. Add those, you get 28. And 2 times 28 is 56. Add those, you get 42. That's my remainder. So constant x squared, x cubed. So my answer is 6x cubed plus 4x squared plus 8x plus 28 plus 42 over x minus 2. Okay, so I do need a placeholder for the x term here. So always look at that first. So bring down the coefficients 6, 15, negative 28, 0, and negative 6. So 4, 3, 2, x is 0, and then negative 6. Okay, got them all. Alright, since this is plus 2, I'm going to use negative 2. Since I kind of switched it, I'm going to use plus instead of minus. Alright, that's going to be 6. Multiply those together, you get negative 12. 3, multiply those together, you get negative 6. Add those, you get negative 34. Multiply these together, you get 68. Add those, you get 68. Multiply those together, you get negative 136. And add those together, you get negative 142. Alright, so my final answer is 6x cubed plus 3x squared minus 34x plus 68 minus 142 over x plus 2. Again, so therefore x plus 2 is not a factor of that because it did not go in evenly. All right, I think that's all we have for long division and synthetic division. Work on your homework problems. Remember to have that key open and just constantly be checking that what you're doing is correct. If you have questions, let me know. Thanks, guys.